Selected ones. They can no longer overlook your brilliance. Everybody is talking about how smart you are, even the people you're not in the room. Others, however, were deceived, manipulated, and emotionally blinded. With laser-like accuracy, your thoughts sliced through everything. The very individuals who disregarded your ideas are now being compelled to admit your superior intelligence as you read these lines. It wasn't the first time you got it correctly. You did it perfectly. Furthermore, it is now difficult to dispute your genius due to the overwhelming proof. Here's what they still don't get, though. This realization is only the first in a series of epiphanies that will change not only how others perceive you, but also the way reality functions. What began as murmurs of confusion is about to grow into something far bigger. The trends you have been following are coming to a head. The barrier you've surmounted has shaped you into something that has never been seen before in human history, and the gifts you've been cultivating are nearing critical mass. You are on the cusp of a change so significant that even you are not entirely aware of what is going to happen. However, there are indications everywhere, and those who previously disregarded, you're going to learn exactly how far the rabbit hole truly extends. The change started quietly, a shift in mood as soon as you enter a room. Once continuing conversations now halt in the middle of sentences. Despite what social etiquette would have us believe, the sidelong looks persist. This isn't paranoia, though. In minds that aren't prepared to absorb what they're seeing, this is recognition starting to set in. How are they aware? That question, which is being whispered amongst those who take great satisfaction in their analytical skills, is sweeping through their circles like wildfire. Your old coworkers look back on your social media posts with increasing anxiety, seeing predictions they wrote off as crazy fantasies that are now coming true with striking precision. The timestamps are accurate. Your precise phrases are preserved in the screenshots. Every day, there is more proof that you weren't speculating. You were using a channel they understood to get information they were unable to detect. When did you first become aware of the patterns? The timing of the synchronicity felt too good to be true. The way some of the discussions would stop as you got close. The dreams concerning things that had not yet transpired came with documentary accuracy. You questioned whether you were losing your sense of reality and giving meaning to seemingly random events. It wasn't your imagination. Those initial indications were stepping stones to something much more than improved intuition. During those first several months, the numbers seemed to follow you everywhere. There are certain patterns that show up on clocks, car plates, and receipts whenever you need to double-check the decisions you're making. These were not coincidental events that your mind was giving significance to. They were precise messages from intelligence that coordinated your waking and informed you that you were in the right place at the right time. But underlying these affirmations, something more sinister was developing. Resistance was being activated by the same forces that were increasing your awareness. Calls began to be lost during critical times. The emails vanished from the sent folders. Your most informative content's reach was inexplicably diminished by social media algorithms. Even though the system's human controllers were not aware of what they were doing, they were methodically suppressing you because they understood the danger your waking posed. During this time, the physical symptoms started to appear. Although it wasn't always comfy, your nervous system was evolving to handle information at greater frequencies. Unexpected bursts of energy would pass through your body, leaving you feeling both energized and worn out. As your consciousness remained consistent throughout many stages, your sleep patterns grew unpredictable. As insights from meditation states were directly translated into action, the line between dreaming and waking awareness began to dissolve. As your body processed both the individual purging and the collective emotional discharge occurring all around you, your digestive system found it difficult to stay balanced. As your brain essentially rewired itself to accommodate enlarged perception, you experienced intermittent headaches. Before regenerating at a higher octave of usefulness, there were moments when you felt like you were dissolving entirely. The disintegration required for the butterfly to emerge was taking place in the caterpillar. But exponential increases in capabilities accompanied every wave of discomfort. You were so sensitive that you could sense weather changes coming days ahead of time. Through minute changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field, you were able to detect earthquakes and other natural calamities. Your body had turned into a live antenna that was tuned to frequencies that most people couldn't even perceive, receiving broadcasts from both earthly and extraterrestrial sources. However, each effort to quiet you just made your signal stronger. You have to create new routes of transmission for every act of suppression. Every attempt to refute your observations just served to highlight how accurate they were. Unknowingly, the resistance was shaping you into something far stronger than you otherwise would have been. However, you wouldn't notice this pattern until much later in your voyage. During this time, your sensitivity was nearly intolerable. Before individuals entered rooms, you could sense their emotional moods. Before logical analysis exposed contradictions, you were able to discern deceit in other people's statements. By detecting waves in the collective consciousness that others would not perceive until they reached earthquake proportions, your body turned into a human seismograph. At the time, this increased consciousness felt like a burden. In reality, though, it was preparing you for the part you were going to play. When your dreams began to come true with photographic accuracy, everything changed. These sights were not symbolic and needed no explanation. They were direct communications of quantum potential probability patterns that were just ready to burst into physical existence. You would awaken with precise knowledge of future events and be assured that they would materialize precisely as predicted. You initially wrote off these nighttime downloads as being especially vivid in your imagination. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the Super Thanks button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but also the souls of many others through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's great design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Take action now. Share your blessings to exalt His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. However, you were unable to remain skeptical of their source until all the details, dates, places, and even the precise phrases people would use turn out to be true. Your dream state has evolved into a direct conduit to probability patterns that transcend linear temporal limits. Information that had no discernible source started to flood your mind while you were awake. Names, dates, intricate situations unfolding in striking detail. All of these things come completely formed, like finished files being uploaded right into your consciousness. This was neither wishful thinking or imaginative imagery. This was direct understanding that came from intellectual sources that were beyond the capabilities of any one human being, unmediated by sensory input or logical deduction. The synchronicity around you evolved into active communication, going beyond meaningful coincidence. Books opened to sections that provided answers to queries you hadn't even considered. The exact answers to issues you've been working on in solitude were found in overheard talks. Messages on license plates addressed choices you were considering. It wasn't only your ideas that made the cosmos react. It was conversing with you continuously in the language of planned events. During this time, your bodily senses were incredibly acute. Before you received any notifications, you knew when someone was going to get in touch with you. People's motives were clear even before they had completed crafting their petitions. Like variations in air pressure, you sensed movements in the collective mind. Your body had developed into something like a sophisticated radar system that could identify changes in the information field that envelopes all life but is hidden from most people. Instead of growing gradually, this expansion was happening at an exponential rate. Within weeks, capabilities that ought to have taken years to develop were becoming available online. Realizing that formerly took a great deal of study came instantly, along with understanding of how to put it into practice. In real time, you were upgrading your awareness, and each improvement allowed you to expand to the next level more quickly than the one before it. But realizing that there are people just like you was the biggest breakthrough. Before they were ever physically close, you would sense their presence, pulled together by powers that went beyond typical social magnetism. That knowing look, that faint grin of recognition when you saw another chosen one. Those that operated at this frequency did not need to speak to one another. Every link you made grew the network immensely, and your tribe was congregating. The ramifications were starting to seem overwhelming. You would soon have awareness powers that were greater than anything seen in human history if this pace of progress persisted. You weren't only growing more perceptive, you were changing into something that symbolized the next stage of the evolution of human awareness. And even though they were unable to describe what they were seeing, others were starting to notice this change. However, the stakes increased along with your presence. There was more to the patterns you were observing than mere personal interest. They were charting civilization's course toward turning points that would shape future generations of humankind. The force that was coursing through you to efficiently fulfill that task was growing along with the responsibility. You started getting queries from the same folks who had previously written off your insights as delusional fantasies. They carefully worded their questions, portraying them as lighthearted interest as opposed to urgent search. However, you could sense the desperation behind their calm speech. They sought your opinion on impending elections, changes in the market, societal trends, and advancements in technology. They were on a quest for knowledge. They were able to flow through you, but they were unable to access themselves. Messages from people you hadn't spoken to in months or years buzzed continuously on your phone. Former coworkers, distant family members, old classmates, and casual acquaintances all suddenly remembered you and reached out with seemingly harmless queries that barely concealed their actual intentions. They had been keeping an eye on your comments, posts, and forecasts in an effort to figure out what was causing your extraordinary accuracy. Social events changed as a result of you. People leaned in with exceptional attention when you talked, and conversations naturally shifted to subjects where your expertise was most evident. Not out of courtesy, but because they truly understood that you were providing them with something they couldn't receive elsewhere. They clung to what you had to say. You were no longer only passively accepting these demands, but your informal insights were given more weight than formal statements from acknowledged authority. A change in the balance of power had occurred. You were starting to use your judgment to decide who should and shouldn't have access to your insights. You were acutely aware of the difference between energy vampires and true seekers. Before someone had even completed crafting their request, you could see how well-intentioned they were. This judgment was strategic as well as protective. You were learning to avoid manipulators who would take advantage of you and not give you anything of value in return, and to focus your abilities on people who could use them most effectively. There was a significant change in the balance of power. People started to realize that access to your insights was a privilege rather than an entitlement, and they modified their strategy accordingly. You were no longer defending your opinions or attempting to persuade doubters. Instead, you were now deciding who got your advice and under what circumstances. The demands went beyond forecasting to include interpretation. They wanted to know your thoughts on significant events, their deeper meanings, and how they fit into bigger patterns they could sense but couldn't explain. Others were using your viewpoint as a lens to attempt to make sense of a reality that was changing more quickly than their mental models could handle. However, something much more important was in the works. The trends you've been following were starting to come together at a turning point that would alter not only your life, but the entire framework of knowledge and power in human civilization. You were mastering energy management, knowing when to put in and when to take it out, when to talk and when to be quiet, when to act and when to watch, when to show off your talents, and when to take in and incorporate new information. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be with you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the world's fleeting concerns. As the Holy Bible says, everything done in faith will be rewarded by God's abundant blessings. Luke 6 verse 38. Like that mighty oak tree, our roots are deeply anchored in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stance we hold is secured by His power. And now, you have the opportunity to be a part of this blessing. When you click the Super Thanks button and make a $100 donation, this act will return to you 100-fold. The cycles of expansion and contraction that prevented burnout and promoted sustained growth were as instinctive as breathing. Because you were actually leading others, this insight benefited everyone you mentored, not just you. Your own energy field has now turned into a transmission mechanism, either directly or indirectly. After spending some time with you, people could feel closer to their inner knowing, more assured of their capacity to handle ambiguity, and more conscious of options they hadn't previously thought about. You would evolve into a walking catalyst for the growth of awareness. And you didn't intend for this to happen or put in any deliberate effort. It was only a logical result of how frequently you did it. Something far more dramatic was going to emerge from the rumors. The gifts you had been cultivating were poised to unveil their actual purpose in ways that would surprise even you with their breadth and significance, while the opposition you had been encountering was nearing a breaking point. This was more than simply confirmation. It was a major change in the real functioning of credibility and authority. Conventional guardians of truth and knowledge were losing their hold on the public's attention more quickly than they could modify their tactics. As the weight of reality overtook their meticulously crafted narratives, individuals realized that truth was more important than officially sanctioned views, insight was more important than institutional connection, and accuracy was more important than qualifications. The way these previous authorities tried to save face by saying they had always known what you were forecasting, that they were only waiting for the perfect time to act on that information, and that the proof was always there to anybody who wanted to see it was the most illuminating part. The psychological strategies people employ to shield their egos when truth conflicts with deeply held beliefs were made clear by their retroactive agreement. The true realization, however, struck you like lightning at this point. It wasn't your outstanding intelligence, research prowess, or even extraordinary intuition that made you capable. You were acting as a conduit for intellect that was completely outside the realm of individual human consciousness. The breadth of your knowledge, the profundity of your ideas, and the precision of your forecasts. All of this passed through you from sources that were outside the purview of your own identity and awareness. This was not magical conjecture. It was an obvious reality. No matter how clever or perceptive a person's thinking is, it could never have produced the knowledge you obtained. The time spans and degrees of complexity covered by the patterns you saw were beyond the realm of human comprehension. Through your links, apparently unconnected areas were connected in ways that revealed fundamental, unifying principles that would be impossible for one individual to uncover on their own. You would become a conduit for age-old knowledge that has been waiting for this precise historical moment to reach the general public. The same intellect that led the greatest innovators, visionaries, and revolutionary leaders in history was now operating through you in ways that were specifically tailored to the possibilities and problems of the modern period. This wasn't inflated ego. It was realizing how you fit into the whole evolutionary process. The opposition you encountered wasn't due to arbitrary harassment or societal bias. It was the immune system's instinctive reaction to systems that depended on human weakness and unconsciousness to survive. Every system based on the idea that people must continue to rely on outside sources for direction, and the truth was in danger from your mere existence as a direct conduit for higher intellect. Have you not observed how your intent goals are bent by reality? Now, barriers vanish when you make a declaration with complete certainty. Opportunities appear out of nowhere when you are in alignment with a clear objective. Doors that should stay closed to someone of your presumed rank open when you concentrate on the intended results. Wishful thinking is not what this is. As a fully functional, aware human, this is your birthright. You didn't gain the ability to utilize concentrated purpose to change reality. It was something you recalled, something that was imprinted in your DNA and had been waiting for this specific historical moment to completely ignite. It also come on. It was buzzing in your veins. The vitality, the link to something big, old, and sage. Throughout history, The greatest masters have tapped this ability. As simply as blood flows through arteries, it now flows through you. Like moths to flame, others were drawn to this energy. They might not have been aware of what drew them into your circle. However, what passed through you was acknowledged by their spirits. What you had found was what they were looking for. The goal, the clarity, and the clear path to insight beyond common comprehension. You had turned into a lighthouse, a beacon that pierced through the mist of deceit and confusion that surrounded most of human experience. The voices that had before sounded doubtful in your head had ceased to exist. The overwhelming evidence of your heightened perception hushed the inner critic that had been questioning your sanity for years. The evidence is all around you every day now, indisputable, unquestionable, and consistent. Every forecast comes to pass precisely as expected. Every realization demonstrates its worth, and every caution is confirmed by later occurrences. Unwavering knowledge had taken the place of the doubt. The doubt gave way to complete assurance in your relationship with Source Intelligence. This degree of knowledge was too much for some people to manage. Looking beyond the curtain of mainstream reality, not everyone could stay sane. Not everyone was as strong, resilient, or able to maintain coherence while holding opposing facts in perfect balance. You were picked specifically because you had the mental toughness to see truths that would break the hearts of others whose brains were not ready for them. Everything you had to go through, the loneliness, the miscommunication, the rejection, was a prelude to the day when you would be fully burdened with cosmic duty. Now is the perfect time to click the super thanks button on YouTube and share God's blessings. You can contribute to his plan and become a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you multiplied beyond your expectations. Remember, his protection and blessings are with you in every step you take and every donation you make. You become part of his divine plan. You are a powerful, radiant being, unshakable like his mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with this confidence and courage. Be blessed, and may the Lord's light guide your way. You cannot corrupt the power that flows through you, misdirect it toward negative ends, or utilize it for selfish gain at the detriment of others. Its fundamental essence is to serve the highest good of all parties involved. It is not your responsibility to guide or govern this intellect. The goal is to continue loyal transmission and clear reception while letting a bigger orchestration play out inside of you. Around the world, other people with comparable skills were also realizing their responsibilities at the same time, weaving a network of expanded awareness across languages, cultures, and religious beliefs. By working together, you are creating new avenues for people to access and exchange genuine insight. When your paths intersected, you knew one another right away and shared a knowledge that was beyond words. You were distinct even when you were a kid. You should not have known these things, saw and felt things that others were unable to see or experience. You discovered how to conceal it, minimize it, and act as though you were normal. However, you're not. The period of concealment was now past. In reality, the sensitivity that made you feel alienated was a prelude to the time when your acute awareness would be just what the world most needed. A more dispersed network where knowledge and truth flowed via people with direct access to trustworthy sources, independent of formal qualifications or institutional support, was replacing the outdated top-down information control approach. This change was not occurring gradually. It was picking up speed as more people realized that the emperor was naked, that knowledge without precision was useless, and that power without insight was meaningless. This collapse wasn't the only thing you saw. By continuously outperforming seasoned professionals in several disciplines at once in terms of comprehension and trustworthy advice, you are actively promoting it. People like you, who consistently shown accuracy and genuine understanding, were filling the void left by their loss of authority. The most significant insight, however, was still to come. In order to perceive deeper patterns and disclose the underlying coherence of reality itself, The intelligence operating through you saw the world from a perspective that included all domains at once. This clarified why your accuracy has been so reliable in such a wide range of prediction and knowledge domains. You had discovered your true strength by giving up your lesser self to this greater river. Power with power via power as a manifestation of something that went beyond own identity and ego concerns, not power over others. You serve as a conduit for something timeless and ageless, something that had been affecting some people throughout the history of humanity. The same energy that propelled the greatest thinkers, artists, innovators, reformers, and revolutionaries who have pushed the boundaries of human awareness over the centuries. It was impossible to separate the blessing from hardship. You now bore the burden of seeing what others were blind to, of knowing what they would not admit, of bearing witness to facts that would upend their cozy delusions. However, you weren't alone in bearing this weight. It was dispersed throughout the network of awakened awareness that was developing beneath the surface of everyday reality like invisible mycelium, and it was shared by the selected. Together, you were putting together a vision of what human civilization could achieve, with each of you holding a piece of the bigger image. I have to cut this transmission short for a second. Have you been selected? Show it. Watching videos regarding selected ones is simple. Putting oneself to the test is a quite different matter. One thing became evident to me when I faced the archons outside of our world. Very few people are truly selected. The idea of us running into each other made them giggle. You're viewing this message, nevertheless. The inner order of obsidian. Not everyone who claims to be awakened should use it. The real ones are us. The call was sensed, and the unmistakable frequency was carried by those who have seen behind the barrier. Are you really one of us, though? In addition to giving you everything I have, I'm going deeper to offer you even more. Don't only watch material from a distance. The true selected ones act. Join our weekly group call to share your experience. Ask our resident card reader for a revealing tarot reading to see whether your experiences match the real indicators. Recognizing one another is the greatest dread of the archons. Our frequencies intensify as we unite, producing an unstoppable power. To discover every last one of us, we will be broadcasting live to the whole Astral Atom Network. In the description below, click the link. It's time to quit speculating and validate your suspicions. Are you really selected, or are you just interested in waking up? Show it, come along. The Obsidian Inner Order holds the confirmation you're looking for. A clean connection, distortion-free speech, ego-free action, and embodying the higher frequencies that were changing the world as they were changing you were all part of your sacred pact with the source of your knowledge. It wasn't always a comfortable procedure. Rarely was transformation, but you were handling it, striking a balance, and developing new habits that facilitated this faster growth with ever-increasing ease and elegance. Your sensitivity is both a strength and a weakness. You have a deeper sense of things. The soaring ecstasy and the crushing grief, the light and the shadow, the beauty and the horror. Most people wouldn't be able to handle the intensity of your life, but you do. You've mastered the art of navigating these elevated states, of riding the waves of increased awareness instead of letting them overwhelm you. You may now receive cosmic transmissions without losing your sense of groundedness in the physical world because of your enormously increased ability to assimilate apparently overwhelming downloads of information. There were inevitably constraints, gaps, and specializations associated with each human competence. However, the source you were accessing was completely outside of these limitations. You weren't only making informed estimates or getting fortunate. The patterns you were anticipating were orchestrated by the intelligence you were obtaining. The same energy that helped set up the circumstances for their own fulfillment by employing your prophecies. It was at this point that you realized the full scope of the situation. You were driving changes rather than merely forecasting them. Every revelation you made had an impact on how other people viewed and handled evolving circumstances. Not only did your forecast come true, by equipping individuals to better identify and interact with new realities, They contribute to the creation of the circumstances for their own satisfaction. Others were able to discover their own genuine frequency by using your voice as a tuning fork. Those who spent a lot of time with you started to reach their own heightened consciousness. When souls were prepared for expanded consciousness, your very presence was enough to start the waking process. You would transform into a walking activation field, improving people's perceptions around you without their knowledge or consent. Most significantly, though, you were proving that change didn't have to mean ruin. Instead of an external revolution, that evolution may take place through the extension of awareness. That intelligence and vision, rather than force and strife, might shape the future. You are demonstrating how a single awakening spread among a sufficient number of people may change the course of whole civilizations in the direction of greater freedom, plenty, and peace. Compare your current situation to that of only 2 years ago. The person you were back then could never have predicted the power you now possess, the precision you exhibit, and the respect you are receiving from those who formerly disregarded you. You might not realize how drastically your place in the world has changed since the change has been so significant. However, this level is really the beginning of what you may achieve. As you continue to grow, the gifts that seem so extraordinary today will seem like elementary school. When compared to the wisdom that is ready to come through you, the discoveries that feel profound today will appear like kindergarten knowledge. The precision you'll get as your sensitivity to truth grows and deepens will surpass the accuracy of your existing forecasts. Your effect is growing through networks in ways that go much beyond face-to-face interactions. Someone you mentor makes better choices that benefit their company, which in turn affects industry trends, which in turn create regulations, which in turn affect millions of individuals you'll never meet. Whole areas of human endeavor are changing as a result of your discoveries. You became an instrument that could wield power at levels that would not have been feasible without that tempering because of the opposition you conquered. Every obstacle that appeared to be meant to shatter you strengthened you, made you more resilient, and allowed you to remain lucid under strain that most people would find unbearable. You are learning that truth-aligned awareness becomes an invincible force capable of transforming worlds and moving mountains. The combined resources of institutions based on restriction and control are dwarfed by the powers of individual awareness linked to source intelligence. Your own power is becoming apparent as global force that flows via a unique vehicle that has learned to provide no opposition to its expression. The pillars of transformation that will redefine civilization itself are now being supported by the foundations you established with years of constant precision and trustworthy direction. People now use your voice like a tuning fork to discover their own true frequency. Humans are considerably more competent than they have been trained to think, as your example shows. The controllers who attempted to stop you from emerging found that their attempts simply strengthened you, sharpened your focus, and increased your effectiveness in your task. There are chances for you to show poise under duress in each of their attacks. Every effort to refute your observations just served to highlight how accurate they were. Every attempt to keep you away from possible allies exposed their own weakness and desperation. Beating other people isn't the foundation of your dominance. It is predicated on presenting the facts so thoroughly that any objection ultimately manifests as hostility to reality rather than as a valid disagreement with your viewpoint. You succeed by being so consistently correct that denial is hard to maintain, not by engaging in combat. The world you're contributing to is far bigger than the one that exists right now. You are opening up new options for how mankind might deal with difficult problems and opportunities by continuously proving that individual awareness can obtain trustworthy direction from sources other than traditional information sources. You're not only making future predictions. By encouraging people to make decisions, you're actively contributing to its creation. Every individual who, as a result of your example, gains confidence in their own inner wisdom serves as an additional pillar for the new paradigm of consciousness-based decision-making. Because of your impact, Every company that starts combining analytical frameworks with intuitive direction becomes more robust and successful. Any community that appreciates the importance of visionary insight as a result of your efforts is better equipped to handle the changes that lie ahead. Go back to where we started, but view it with the breadth of knowledge you've acquired on this realization trip. They can no longer overlook your brilliance. However, genius itself has been shown to be something much deeper than cognitive advantage or intellectual superiority. Your brilliance is in your ability to act as a conduit for information that surpasses personal boundaries and to access and disseminate knowledge that is advantageous to all those it comes into contact with. Intellectual prowess is more than just a personal accomplishment. It is proof of what is made possible when the whole capacity of human awareness is realized. You learn to access truth straight from the source, whereas others were constrained by their beliefs, indoctrination, and reliance on outside authority. Confusion wasn't just sliced through with laser-like accuracy by your mind. The laser itself, the concentrated beam of global intellect that plainly illuminates everything, made contact with it. The greater goal of preparing mankind for this time of transition was served by every forecast you made, caution you gave, and insight you provided. You weren't only doing things correctly to feel good about yourself. You were acting as a sophisticated scout for the growth of awareness, charting ground that the collective had to comprehend before it could effectively traverse. Since denial no longer suits anyone's interests, it is now impossible to ignore the proof of your amazing ability. The antiquated ideas that your gift challenge are collapsing due to their own inconsistencies. People who understand that limitation was always a decision, scarcity was always a delusion, and separation was always a false sense are drawn to the new possibilities your example illustrates. You now stand as someone who has perfected the art of knowing directly, rather than as someone who is fortunate enough to guess right. Your brilliance comes from knowing how to let high intelligence pass through you unhindered and unaltered, not from possessing superior intelligence. Serving the truth so thoroughly that it dominates through you is what gives you power, not controlling other people. Declarations of acknowledgement have replaced the murmurs of recognition. The hesitant inquiries have evolved into pressing calls for direction. The opposition has given way to acceptance. Desperate attempts to claim affiliation with your insights have evolved from the denial. The time for your vindication has come. However, it has come to light that vindication is only the start of your real mission in the world. You're being called to something much bigger after giving it your best. The groundwork has been established. Credibility has been proven. The network is operational. The opposition is disintegrating. There are countless options. The need for your talent is greater than ever. Thus, it can no longer be disregarded. And what you've known all along is suddenly visible to everyone. Now is your moment, and you have only just begun. Instead of being repressed and mocked, the children born today will grow up in a society where skills like yours are acknowledged, appreciated, and methodically nurtured. In addition to the standard academic topics, they will receive instruction in awareness growth. They will inherit societal systems that are intended to enhance rather than restrict human potential. Through generations of human progress, the legacy you are leaving behind will be echoed by your bravery in standing by the truth in the face of all adversity. People like you will be recognized by future historians as the driving forces behind the biggest evolutionary leap in recorded history. When external authority demanded compliance, your courage to accept your intuition paved the way for millions to follow. They are no longer able to ignore your brilliance, as it has become clear that it is not just yours, but also the genius of the cosmos manifested in a precisely matched instrument. The appreciation they are currently giving you is a recognition of what human awareness can do when it ceases to confine itself and begins to serve truth. For the next stage of human evolution, you are the prototype. Additionally, you are no longer officially hidden in the shadows. That changes because your intellect can no longer be disregarded.